Hey guys, it's Jay from Hustle Paintball, and now that the LV1s are actually shipping out, well, we want to go over on how to tune them correctly. This is the first gun that Planet's made that really has a setting other than just on or off. So tuning it's part of owning one of these markers. And because of that, Planet recently released a tuning guide. Essentially, we're going to go over the correct way to set up your brand new marker. And it's important to follow along and do this stuff with us and really understand what you're doing, because if you do it incorrectly or just go your own route, you can actually damage your brand new marker, and that would really suck. Now, number one, do not dry fire the marker excessively. This is important. I know as soon as you guys get it, your brand new gun, you're going to want to, gas it up and just rip it and see what everyone's been talking about. But the system expects a certain amount of back pressure from a ball actually being in the breech. So if you excessively dry fire the marker, there's a very real chance that you will, well, first, in order of suck, I suppose, you'll wear out the bumper O-ring on the rammer, and the rammer bumper itself fits in the rammer cap. If you do it even more than that, you can start to damage the rammer and the lever mechanism, and that would really suck on your brand new gun. Now, the next thing, because you're tuning a marker, you can do it wrong. You can cause the marker to be either inconsistent, not work, or like I said, put a lot of extra stress on the system by doing it incorrectly. So it is important to follow these steps that we're going to go outside and actually show you guys how to do. You're also going to need to know how to reset your marker to its factory setting. Now, your manual does a pretty good job of explaining how to do this. We are also going to go over it so you guys are absolutely certain you know how to reset your marker to its factory settings. This is also important because when it comes out of the box, when it's set to factory, these are the settings for cold weather play. When the O-rings and all the parts of the marker are cold, they don't want to work the same, so it needs more air, more pneumatic force to actually make the marker work. Now, if you're playing indoors or it's summer or it's not really cold, well, you can follow along, do what we're going to do in this little setup, this tuning guide, and it'll make your marker just feel better. You guys will see what I mean when you actually get yours and you do it. But these are for cold weather settings, so when it eventually becomes winter again and you want to keep playing, well, you know how to reset it to factory, and bam, it's going to work. Last but not least, you cannot tune this marker by feel alone. You just can't. You need a chronograph. You've never ever really shot anything like an LV1 before. I can pretty much guarantee you. So you need a chrono. You're trying to make the marker operate in a fairly narrow band of performance. So you just need an accurate tool that will tell you whether or not you're achieving your goal or if you're just wasting air, or worse, setting your gun up to be unsafe or inconsistent. And that would kind of defeat the whole purpose of the guide. But enough of me just standing here talking. Let's go outside and actually get to tuning this marker to show you what the awesome performance of the LV1 actually is. Cool, here we are outside. Before we get going in earnest, there's a couple things that we need to do to prepare the gun. First, take your screws out of your grip. You're going to need to access the right side of your grip. On the inside here, make sure you have a good battery, because not only just for tuning purposes, but just in general, you have a Planet Eclipse gun, they require good non-rechargeable batteries, so use Duracells or Energizers. Also, make sure your tournament lock is actually off, otherwise it will not let you modify the parameters of the board. Make sure that your SFRs, your solenoid flow restrictors, are 7 rear and 5 forward. That's important. That's just the best setting for tuning the marker in this particular way. Next, of course, make sure you have enough air in your tank. Over 2,500 is recommended. And the last thing you want to do before you actually get going is, if you haven't, make sure that your bolt and rammer slide back and forth fairly painlessly. The reason, of course, is if there's any drag from them being dirty or whatever, well, your gun's not going to tune right. As soon as you change those or clean them out, your gun will be, well, slightly out of tune. So with all that, once all that is good, now we can actually start tuning it. First thing, of course, mask. Turn on the marker. And what we're going to start doing here is dwell tuning. Now to do this, what you're going to need is a chronograph. We already have the marker set to the performance range that we're going for, which in this case is between 280 and 290. That's where you want to keep the gun as you adjust the parameters. So, right here, start, 292, 280, 287. Cool, so we're right in the performance band. Now, what you want to do, go into your menu settings, which you access by holding the center button and then scrolling with the top and bottom buttons. The setting you're looking for is called timing. It's got a little heartbeat next to it. Select it, and the first option is dwell. The stock dwell is 16.8. What you want to do is drop it by 5 milliseconds. In this case, that drop it to 15.3, or sorry, 16.3, excuse me. Once you have it there, you can just hold down the center button and go to exit, and cool, now the marker's ready to fire. Anytime you make any changes to the marker with the LPR, the dwell, or anything like that, you have to clear the old regulated air out. So fire a couple shots, get your chrono again, 284, 279, 278. So we're still pretty close, but if we drop it again and it gets very far outside of the performance band, then we'll know we've gone too far. I'm going to go a little bit faster for you guys, so you don't have to sit here and watch me press buttons, because that's boring. Drop it again, 5 more. All right. Clear it. Chrono. 275. 267. 284. 260. All right, other than that one hot one, we clearly went too far. So, go back in, increase the dwell. Clear it, and we'll check it again. 281. 280, 285. Perfect. That's how you dwell tune it. For the next stage, which is going to be with your LPR, you're going to need your 1/8 Allen key. Surely you brought that. So to access the front, goes in right there. Now we're talking about very small movements here. Pretty much, we do exactly what we did with the dwell, but we're going to do 1/8 of a revolution. Now, to lower the dwell, you want to screw it in. You want to screw it clockwise. So we're going to start doing that. 1/8 of a turn, which is a very small amount. Once that's done, get your chrono again, clear it out. The reason why this is actually pretty cool is you actually hear the marker change, which is pretty neat, I think. 278, 281, 278. We might not be able to drop it again, but we're going to try one more increment. Sorry about the wind, guys. Clear it. 273, 272, 279, 283. So those were all pretty much, other than that last one, outside of the performance band. Go back the other way here. 1/8 of a turn. Clear it. Chrono. That one didn't read. Go. 279. 281. 285. Bam. That's perfect. Now from here, the last thing you can do is, well, I'm going to take my mask off here so you guys can actually see me. So I'm going to turn the gun off. What you can do from here, you can adjust your solenoid flow restrictors away from this setting here while we're tuning. You don't necessarily have to. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but you can if you want to change the dynamics of your shot. It'll still perform exactly the same way that the manual says it would. You know, if you drop your front one too low, then you might get low velocity. If your rear cycle is too low, you might not get a high enough cyclic rate. So those are what those will do from here on out. And you can go ahead and tune them for an even more interesting and customized setup for your LV1. So we're gonna go back inside for some final thoughts, guys, and a couple other best practices when you're doing this on your brand new marker. There are one or two more things we need to go over now that you have your marker all tuned up, sort of the care and feeding of a tuned ego. The first, of course, is you might wonder why we didn't use a barrel kit like a Pathogen Meteor kit or a Tect iFit. The idea being, all we did was use the stock 689 back and paint that was pretty close. In our case, it was Nelson Anarchy, and that stuff was coming out to be like 687, 688. So I mean, that's a pretty good fit anyway. But you don't want to be using a significant underbore or whatever. The reason being is this: if you tune your marker with that particular combination of barrel and paint, when one of those changes, it's going to undo a good deal of your fine work. This way, no matter what you put on later, you'll still see these gains in efficiency. So just keep that in mind. That's the reason we didn't use a barrel sizing kit. Speaking of changes in paint size, when winter comes around and paint shrinks and your gun's tolerances change again because, well, it's cold outside, lube's getting thicker, etc., you are going to need to change the gun back to its factory settings to make sure it still works during the winter. As we said before, that's what it's like when it comes out of the factory, out of the box in the first place. And speaking of things like O-rings, keep them clean. That's just all there is to it. When you're running your gun in this narrow of a performance band, if you don't keep it clean, you let it dry out, you give it to your buddy, he uses it all week, tells you he loses it, doesn't actually get back to him, and you have weird velocity issues and the gun's leaking or anything like that, it's because it's not clean. If you get dirt or anything on the bolt O-rings or the rammer O-rings dry out or anything like that, it's going to cause problems with your gun. Again, you're running this marker in a fairly narrow performance band, so you have to make sure all the necessary components are working at their best possible rate. And I guess there was one more thing, just in case. For those of you guys who don't really know what an eighth of a turn looks like, well, fortunately Eric Cromer, our resident artist, drew a diagram. Because at Hustle Paintball, we like diagrams. So here it is. That's an eighth of a turn. That's what we're talking about when we say very little adjustments to the LPR. And if you guys still can't understand that, you know who you are, feel free to call us. We're more than happy to explain it to you guys. You can, of course, get all this paintball stuff at hustlepaintball.com. And if you have any further ideas for videos, email us at videos@hustlepaintball.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. You can bug Eric and myself there. We're there almost all day. And speaking of bugging us, make sure you guys join pbriot.com. It is the newest and I think coolest paintball community on the internet, and I'm sure you guys would be a welcome addition to it. And last but not least, guys, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you like this video. Of course, we have other ones on barrel boring. We actually have the review of the LV1 and a bunch of other videos on paintball and a lot more in the pipeline. So until next time, guys, have a good day. Here at Hustle Paintball, we like pictures. Pictures are pretty awesome, and they're drawn by our very talented artist, Eric Cromer, who's sitting over there.
Hi!
Drooling slightly.
Yeah, derp, 1 turn. The gun turned off.
The gun apparently disagrees with my estimate of Eric as a talented artist. He did draw this. He actually, incidentally, originally wrote LRR. I don't actually know what an LRR is.
Lure.
However, we suspect it might be Lure from Futurama, but if you have other ideas for what Lure could stand for, please email us at I should have Eric's job at hustlepaintball.com.